Hi there, hope you're well. In this video I'm going to be taking the little anti-tipping lip off this Makita pattern guide rail to make it more compatible with DIY accessories and the little Parkside plunge saw. Sounds like a crazy thing to do, doesn't it? Why would anybody want to do that? And what's it for anyway? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. A couple of months ago I did the quick review of the Parkside plunge saw and I actually compared the 2021 version to the current Makita saw from Screwfix here in the UK. Although the Parkside is a great saw, it's lightweight and it's well specified, I came down in favour of the Makita for a couple of reasons. Partly you can buy one, whereas the Parkside is a special purchase, not always available, certainly here in the UK. And the other one is that the Parkside has an unusually wide base, so it will only fit on its own rails, on Festool rails, or on perhaps the Evolution rails, the third-party guide rails. The Parkside rails are absolutely fine, nothing wrong with them. However, they lack a T-slot on this side, which means that it's harder to get accessories for them. And the other thing, of course, is that what many people do, one of the first purchases that a new plunge saw user will make is for an extra 1400mm length of guide rail, because joining these two 700s together gets old pretty fast. I want to do a quick shout out to Dutch subscribers Stefan and Hamish. They got hold of me independently to tell me that there's a company in Holland called HBM that sells a 1400mm version of this Parkside pattern rail for just €35, which is really good if you're happy to stay with that rail. Unfortunately, it costs about €40 to ship one here to the UK, so it's a bit of a non-starter for us on this small island. My personal favourite would be, my personal preference would be for a Makita pattern guide rail. Makita pattern rail is almost identical to the Festool, but it has a little anti-tipping lip on it. And again, that doesn't really serve any great purpose other than to stop the saw falling over at the end of a bevel cut. You could perhaps use it as a bevel guide, but to be honest, certainly in the Makita saw that I've got, there's far too much play in it for me to be able to use that. The Makita pattern guide rails are by far the most widely copied rail. They're used by Titan, Triton, I've got them all down here. Titan, Trident, Urbar and Makita, and I'm sure many others. This is my personal favourite. I talked about this one when I did my Which Rails Work video. This is the XL guide rail, which is currently on sale for less than £40. I think it's 37 or 37.50, something like that. So great value for money, but your Parkside saw won't run on it because of this little lip. I have heard of people grinding the base of their Parkside saw away just to make them fit on these rails. I'm going to go for the slightly easier option and show you how to rip this lip off with nothing more sophisticated than the saw you already have. So this isn't a particularly difficult cut to make, but you do need to do it safely, so you need the rail to be fully supported. The XL, most standard guide rails, are about 12mm high, 12.5mm. I don't have any 12mm boards, so I'm using a piece of 12mm plasterboard or drywall for that. And I've got my two 700mm Parkside rails joined together to make a 1400mm rail. Now, fairly obviously, you're probably ahead of me here. We've got a 1400mm rail for the saw, and we've got a 1500mm rail that we're going to be trimming, so this needs to move around a little bit. So what we'll effectively be doing is using the plasterboard, the support board as a fence, and we'll move this rail back and forth to get the full cut. The other problem that I've got, normally I'd be doing this the other way around. I'm doing it this way around so you guys can see it more easily, and that gives me a little bit of a problem with clamping the Parkside rail. So what I'm actually going to do is put a couple of joining bars in there just to give me an extra little bit of length, and then I can clamp onto those. Now, one of the things we do need to do is set your depth of cut quite carefully, because fairly obviously we don't want to go in too deep and cut your brand new guide rail in half. So we can do that with the saw unplugged. Extract and disconnect it. You can get that onto the guide rail here. And just make sure by plunging the saw that it's going deep enough to get through the lip, but not so deep it's going completely through the rail. So that's all set up pretty nicely. On my scale, it's between 5 and 6 mil on the rail. Obviously your saw and your setup will vary. It might be worth putting a little spatula waxing stick kind of thing in there, or a little piece of scrap. These are 1.5 mil, 1/16 of an inch. And if you slide that under the lip, it can make it easier to see where the teeth of the blade are coming down. If they don't touch that, then it's a pretty safe bet that you're in the clear. So we've got our saw set up to the right depth. We can get the rail clamp down now. There's nothing especially scientific in this. We're just getting the splinter guard as close as we can to where we think we want the cut to come, and just do a little very brief test cut at the other end. So yeah, that's all looking pretty good. Nice clean cut down there. Lots of little bits of aluminium swarf. As always happens, the dust collection really can't cope with aluminium dust. So that's pretty good. We'll do the first 2/3 of that rail, then we'll move the rail along and finish it up. And fingers crossed that'll be me all done. But yeah, slow and steady. It's not a race. It'll just do that nice and carefully. Let's see how we get on. Okay, that's fairly successful. Lots and lots of swarf everywhere. So a little bit of tidying up to do. Be with you in a second. Okay, so I need to go over this very, very carefully with some wipes. But generally speaking, I think we can consider that something of a success. There is a very slight lip on there still, so it's not quite as close to here as it could be. In fact, I might just run a sander over that quickly just to clean it up a little bit as well. So there we are, that's all there is to it really. A basic little Makita pattern guide rail for under £40. I think they're £37.50 at the minute. There's a link in the video description down below. Prices do fluctuate, of course. But really that's all there is to it. Just make sure that your regular guide rail in your plunge saw is well supported and that you can run this saw along that fence to get a continuous cut. Just trim that lip off with a stock blade, and then clean it up with a sander and go over it with a little bit of wire wool just to make sure there's no nasty little bits on there that can catch your hands. As I said before, I'll give that a wipe over with a damp cloth to make sure there's none of those left, because they are quite nasty. But that really is all there is to it. It's as simple as that and as straightforward as that. And I do hope this video's helped you broaden your options for guide rails. All the accessories that I've got fit that perfectly now. So it's, essentially a Festool pattern rail now, but without the price. That's it for this week then. I'm going to call it a day. Thanks ever so much for taking a look. Thank you as always to my amazing Patreon supporters and YouTube members. Their contributions really do help me to keep the lights on here, but it's the conversations that we have that really helps me to form the videos that go out publicly. So if you're interested in taking part of that conversation, being part of the 10-minute workshop team, we'd love to have you on board and taking part. There are links down in the video description below to where you can sign up. But that's it for this one. Thanks so much for taking a look, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, take care.